Starting off this countdown, we have the deadly accident. Disney has made the illusion that no deaths or accidents ever happen at their parks. That's a big lie. With thousands of guests coming and going every day, something is bound to happen, and Disney will go to extreme measures to make sure that word doesn't get out about it. One example would be Javier Cruz. In February of 2004, Javier Cruz, a worker at Disney, got dressed up as Pluto and headed out to join the parade. However, the foot of his costume got stuck and the float behind him didn't stop. It ran over him and he died. He had been working there for about 9 years. This was such a tragic accident, but it didn't make news like it should have. Moving on, at number 9, we have the unsanitary conditions. So back in the day, cast members at Walt Disney had to obviously share costumes, but they also had to share undergarments. Yeah, up until 2001, each costume had their own Disney-sanctioned undergarments that they would all have to share. That is so gross. But because of this, a lot of workers were passing around scabies and pubic lice to each other. That is highly unsanitary. I'm just glad that that's not a thing anymore. They ain't gotta share that stuff. Moving on, at number 8, we have the sexism. Disney has a very sexist past. So a letter from Disney from back in 1938 showed that they wouldn't hire women to work for them. So the letter was addressed to a woman called Mary Ford, who applied for a position on the animation team. In the letter, Disney said, and I quote, "Women do not do any of the creative work in connection with preparing the cartoons for the screen, as that task is performed entirely by young men. For this reason, girls are not considered for the training school." At the time, women were being discriminated against in many ways, but many people were shocked and angered by this letter. Coming in at number 7, we have the cursed ride. Due to its dark history, Disney park workers and others believe that the Matterhorn ride is cursed. First off, this ride is responsible for the most fatal and non-fatal incidents. In 1964, a teen on the ride stood up in the bobsled and died after being thrown out from it. Then at another time, the ride caught on fire, injuring a family in their sled. And another visitor died after she was launched out of her seat and hit by another bobsled. You think they would have fixed the ride after the first couple of deaths. But no, they blame it on a curse instead. They should look into the safety of that ride. Clearly, it's not safe. And again, all those deaths happened at the park and still not a lot of people were talking about it. In our 6th spot, we have the deadly fireworks. Back in 2015, a Disney worker died after attempting to launch a firework off of his head. Devin Staples was a 22-year-old Disney employee. He was best known for dressing up as Gaston, but he would also dress up as multiple other characters. Upon lighting the firework, he died instantly. His brother said that there was no rushing him to the hospital. After the firework went off, he claims that there was no Devin left. Now, some say that this was actually an accident. He never really planned to light the firework, he was only teasing about it. Either way, this is so sad and tragic. But obviously, Disney doesn't want anyone to know that one of their workers died on their property while on shift. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Snow White. In 1937, Disney came out with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is the first and oldest feature-length animated film released by them. Now, you would think that voicing Snow White would be the role of a lifetime. But no, think again. Adriana Caselotti, who voiced Snow White, actually had her career ruined by Disney. So Disney made sure that besides Snow White, she was never credited for any other work that she was in, and she was banned from doing any other voice work. Why? Because they wanted to preserve the illusion of Snow White. She couldn't even do radio interviews. That's a little extreme, like Disney owned her voice. Moving on to number 4, we have the Lemmings. In 1938, Disney came out with a nature documentary. In the documentary, there's a scene where a bunch of lemmings commit suicide by leaping into the ocean off of a cliff. And Disney claimed that that was normal and part of the animal's migration. They even had a clip in the movie showing the lemmings doing so. But this is entirely false. These animals don't just jump off cliffs in groups and kill themselves. So for this scene, Disney imported a bunch of lemmings and then pushed or threw them off of a cliff. That's not really a happy ever after ending for them, Disney. In our third spot, we have the ashes. So apparently it's a thing to take your loved ones to Disney World. Not your living loved ones, no, your dead loved ones. And then you sprinkle their ashes all over the park. Believe it or not, but this happens more often than you think. Visitors will bring their loved ones' ashes on a ride and then release them down on Disney World. What about the other people on the ride? Like, all you need is a gust of wind to blow those ashes right into their face. Now, there's one ride in particular that people love doing this on. Take a guess in the comments below. Done? Okay. It's the Haunted Mansion ride. I don't know what it is, but tons of people release their loved ones on this ride. And when that happens, Disney literally has a special vacuum that they use to suck up the remains. Like, they have a protocol in place for when people do this, because it happens so often. That's so messed up. Maybe don't do that, because your loved ones are just gonna end up in a vacuum, and then in the trash. Moving on to number 2, we have the alligator attacks. So once upon a time, Disney had a really bad alligator problem. But obviously they didn't want park guests to worry, so they kept downplaying the problem. From 2006 to 2015, 220 alligators had to be removed from Disney World. Then from 2015 to 2016, there was a massive increase of gators at the park. Since Disney is connected to waterways that intersect with lakes and rivers, alligators have an easier access to Disney than they admitted to. Sadly, in June of 2016, a young park guest was killed in an alligator attack. That's when Disney was exposed for downplaying the seriousness of their alligator problem. And in our number 1 spot, we have Debbie Stone. Debbie Stone was an 18-year-old hostess at Disney. However, in 1974, she sadly lost her life while on the job. And her death remains a huge mystery. So Debbie was a hostess for America Sings, which was a musical performance at Disneyland. For this attraction, you would be seated in a theater facing a stage, and after each performance, the theater would rotate. But sadly, during one performance, Debbie got caught between the rotating wall and the stationary stage wall. She was instantly crushed to death. She was found with her body in pieces. Her death was kept a secret, like all the other ones on the list. Disney didn't want the other workers to hear about it, and her friends working at Disney were not allowed to even make a memorial for her. But the mystery remains. How did Debbie end up between the walls? Was she pushed? Did she trip and fall? We don't know. Only Disney knows. Starting off this countdown, we have the Smellitizer. Disneyland sees about 18 million guests per year. Disney World sees about 58 million guests per year. That is an insane amount of people. Now, what if I told you that Disneyland mind controls its guests? I wish I was making this up, but I am not. So Disney uses a device known as the Smellitizer. Basically, it's a device used to pump fumes throughout the park. For example, at the main entrance, they pump out the smell of popcorn to entice you to buy some. In candy shops or ice cream parlors, it will smell sweet like vanilla. They also do this to make their rides more immersive. Like at the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, it will smell like wet wood and sea salt. They are literally controlling what you smell. If that's not a form of mind control, then tell me what is. In our 9th spot, we have the monorail. So at Disney World in Florida, they have a public transit system known as the monorail. Basically, it allows guests to travel free between locations associated with Disney. However, in 2009, a 21-year-old monorail driver lost his life while on the job. He was transporting the last batch of guests for the night when another monorail came speeding towards him. They got into a head-on crash that took his life. After investigating the issue, it was discovered that the crash was entirely Disney's fault. They violated a number of safety protocols and even got fined for this. Coming in at number 8, we have the People Mover. The People Mover ride was a transport attraction that opened up at Tomorrowland at Disneyland, California in 1967. Basically, you would board a small train that would take you on a ride above Tomorrowland from above. However, a month after the ride opened, a 16-year-old boy tripped and fell fell onto the track. The oncoming train crushed him and dragged his body for a few hundred feet before stopping. That was just a month after opening. But sadly, it's not the only accident that happened. In 1972, a teen fell 30 feet to the ground from the tracks. As a result, she broke her arm, hip, and pelvis. She ended up suing Disney. Then in 1980, another male was crushed and killed by this ride. Over the years, there have been tons of lawsuits from people who have gotten injured on this ride. In our 7th spot, we have the injuries. The Disney mascot actors go through a lot. And I mean a lot. Not only do they have to wear those heavy costumes in the heat, but they also have to deal with whiny children and a bunch of Karens. But what you may not know is that Disney mascots often get seriously injured while on duty. A woman playing Mickey Mouse suffered a bad neck injury after a guest kept patting her head, which caused the head to fall down and strain her neck. The costumes themselves weigh around 47 pounds. They are blamed for at least 282 injuries. Not only that, but they are often touched inappropriately by the guests. A lot of workers have filed police reports because guests would grope or touch them inappropriately. It's not the kids though, it's the adults. A Disney princess had a 51-year-old man grab her breasts. He was arrested and then charged with battery. In another case, the actor portraying Donald Duck got grabbed inappropriately in certain areas by an older woman. Those poor mascots go through so much. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the creepers. It's scary, but a park full of children attracts the wrong kind of people. Over the years, Disney has had a real problem with predators at the park. And I don't know what kind of background checks that Disney is doing on their employees, but obviously they aren't thorough enough. Because over the years, a number of park employees have been arrested after being inappropriate with the park guests. Since 2002, 42 employees have been arrested because of this. That's way too many people. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the freaky business. So apparently a lot of people like to get it on at Disney World. Author Leonard Kinsey highlights this in the book The Dark Side of Disney. Basically, he describes the truth about Disney and exposes all their dirty little secrets. So apparently a lot of people have in the companion restroom. It's a single room with a toilet and sink for anyone that wants a little extra privacy, or for anyone that wants to get a little spicy. Like really, come on guys, keep it together. Apparently a lot of people try to get it on during rides as well. If you're caught though, you get the boot right away. You get the boot and no booty. In our 4th spot, we have the chef suit. So in 2010 at Disneyland Paris, 2 chefs committed. Apparently, the working conditions weren't the best. One of the chefs apparently became depressed after the food at the park switched from freshly made to frozen. His note read, and I quote, "I don't want to work for Mickey anymore." This seems like an urban legend, but I swear I'm not making this up. The other chef apparently took his own life because of humiliating treatment at work. Then in 2013, another employee tried to take his own life by setting himself on fire. That's crazy. Coming in at number 3, we have the deaths. So Disney claims that no one has ever died at their park. Clearly that's not true. Like I just finished talking about all the people that have died at their parks. So it turns out what Disney does is when someone does die at the park, employees have to remove the dead body from the property before pronouncing them dead. That means no one technically died at the park, only outside of the park's gates or wherever they were. They do this so that all the families feel safe coming there. I mean, the park must be super safe if no deaths have ever occurred there. Very sneaky, Disney. Very sneaky. Moving on at number 2, we have the workers' deaths. So that's not the only crazy rule that Disney has. They also have a rule as to what should happen if a mascot or character actor gets injured or dies there. No matter what happens, they have to stay in character. Once they are out of the public's eye, that's when they can receive medical attention. For example, one worker was told before accepting a job as Water Goofy on a Disney cruise, he had to agree that in an event he started drowning, he had to be carried away before lifeguards remove his costume and perform CPR. So he could literally be dying in the costume and need medical attention right away, but Disney won't allow it. And in our number 1 spot, we have the cover-up. This is by far one of the biggest cover-ups made by Disney. So on December 24th, 1998, 2 park guests and an employee were involved in a bad accident on the sailing ship Columbia ride. A heavy metal cleat became loose and hit the guests and employee. One of the guests died and his wife was hospitalized. But Disney failed to notify the police. When they were called to the scene, Disney cleaned up the mess as quickly as possible before the police arrived. They also refused to let in outside medical personnel. They were afraid that this would frighten the park guests. 2 things they shouldn't have done. They got a hefty fine as a result of this and were taken to court.
So starting us off, in at number 10, there may be real skeletons in the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction at Disneyland. This is one of my favorite rides, and next time I ride this, I'm gonna jump off the boat into the water and I'm gonna go looking for this. Apparently when they were deciding to build the ride, the Imagineers decided that the prop skeletons, well, they didn't look real enough. So they hit up the UCLA Medical Center for some actual skeletons to be featured. I mean, this just took a whole new level. Throughout the years, most of these have been replaced with replicas and given a proper burial, but apparently there are still some real bones, if not entire skeletons, guarding the treasures. Next up, number 9, there are no modern bathrooms in Magic Kingdom's Liberty Square. Disney really went above and beyond to keep this authentic to its time period. Back in the colonial times, washrooms weren't used on how we use them today, so of course Disney had to make sure to keep this continuity by making sure these are no modern washrooms. Yeah, there technically are some in Liberty Tavern and Columbia Harbor House, but these are set so far back in restaurants that they aren't actually in the Liberty Square anymore. Magic Kingdom's main street doesn't actually have the American flags lining in it. Okay, so obviously it looks like it's lined with American flags, but Disney actually had to make some slight adjustments. They did this to get around a law that says that every flag has to be raised, lowered, and raised at half-mast appropriately. In order to keep the flags flying high for the visitors, all the time, Disney made sure to remove a star here and a stripe there, making the flags technically not American. Coming in at number 7, there's a labyrinth of secret tunnels underneath Disney World. This one has definitely become more well known recently, but it is still a pretty cool kept secret. In order for the cast and crew to get from point A to point B without walking through the park and risk being seen acting out their characters or having their characters be seen in a world that they don't exist in, well, obviously these tunnels are closed off to the public, but apparently it's like a whole other world down there. The tunnels even have their own barbershops that specializes in Disney approved hairstyles. I don't know if that's real, but I want to go find out. Filling in the number 6 spot today, there is an entirely private members club at Disney World, and it has 4 locations, one in Epcot, one in American Adventure, the one in Magic Kingdom is beside the entrance to Adventureland, and the one in Hollywood Studios is on the 2nd floor of the Hollywood Brown Derby restaurant, and the 4th is being built at Animal Kingdom. All 4 of these have a theme that go along with Walt Disney's life, but unless you're one of the lucky few, you probably won't have a chance to see inside, but you can be sure that they are swanky, fun, and impeccably decorated. In at number 5, cats roam the ground of Disneyland at night. Apparently while doing a walkthrough of Sleeping Beauty's castle, Walt Disney and the Imagineers discovered it was filled with flea-ridden feral cats. They initially were going to adopt them out to cast members, but instead decided to keep them around to help, keep out the mice. Well, except for Mickey and Minnie, of course, because that would be devastating. Next up, number 4, the basketball court inside the Matterhorn. Okay, so this one isn't really a full court, but more of a hop, backboard, and floor marking. But still, you can play basketball inside of the Matterhorn at Disneyland. I don't exactly know why this was put there, especially since every detail of Disney seems to have a unique function, but oh well, it seems like it would be a fun place for Cinderella and Lilo to have a little go one-on-one during this break. Alright, coming in number 3, there are scents being pumped through the park. If you walk down Main Street and smell freshly baked cookies, or walk by Pirates of the Caribbean and smell seawater, you're not going crazy. The parks do this in order to enhance the experience of the visitors and make their trip to Disney even more immersive. Even the hotel lobbies have more of a home scent pumping through them to make the guests, more comfortable. Number 2, you can hear a secret conversation on Main Street. Inside the hat shop on Main Street, you can find an antique telephone. If you pick up this phone, instead of being able to make your own call, you'll be able to eavesdrop on a mother and a daughter's phone call in which they're arguing about the price of groceries. This one is not a huge underground secret, but it's definitely a cute little Easter egg that make your visits to the parks that much more fun and immersive. And finally, in at number 1, there's an abandoned water park inside Disney World. Disney World's first water park ran for about 25 years until it closed down in 2001. For some reason, it was never torn down, and it remains there today. It's on an island in the middle of Bay Lake in the park, and although it obviously isn't accessible to the public, there are photos of it that shows moss and vines and other plant life taking over. I mean, a mysterious closure and Disney not wanting to disturb the remains of what was there, well, that definitely has some major curse vibes to me.